You think about grace, and probably something that we've heard before, and maybe something that we've maybe never heard clearly and just explained to us in a way that we can really understand what our responsibility as a receiver of grace is. Maybe you've heard it explained as free, unmerited favor. Maybe you've heard grace defined as something given that we don't deserve. And maybe that's the extent of how we've heard it explained. We sing songs about it. One of the most popular songs we sing, the song we sang this morning, Amazing Grace. How sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. When you think of grace, does it impact you? Does it cause us to stop and to think and to acknowledge and to recognize the power of the word? G.W. Knight said this: when a person works an 8-hour day and receives a fair day's pay for his time, that's a wage. When a person competes with an opponent and receives a trophy for his performance, that's a prize. When a person receives an appropriate recognition for his long service or high achievements, that's an award. But when a person is not capable of earning a wage, cannot win a prize, and deserves no award, yet receives such a gift anyway, that's a good picture of God's grace, of God's unmerited favor. When you see yourself in the mirror, what do you think you deserve? And I know I really debated on making that statement, because I don't want this to be a lesson that we look at ourselves and we go, man, what a bummer, who am I? But I want us to look at this lesson and go, I need something from God, and that need is grace. That desire, if you will, is grace. Do you this morning desire grace? I think it's safe to say sometimes we think we need it. But let me ask the question again. Do you this morning desire grace? I want to look at this lesson from two different perspectives. Number one, I want to look at the lesson from the giver's perspective and who the giver is. And you think about this giver of something dramatically awesome, if you will. And think about the gifts that Jed mentioned. A gold bathtub. I, too, have a bathtub. A gold one, no. What do you say to somebody after you give them a gold bathtub? I hope it works well. Hope it holds water. And what do you say to somebody after you give them an island? It's yours. Name it whatever you'd like. We've been given good gifts, but never been given a gift like grace. When you think of grace and the gift of grace, the one who gives it empowers the gift itself. When you look at passages like Exodus 34 and verse 6, think about this section of scripture with me real quick. Moses returns back up the mountain to receive the second set of tablets. Remember, if you think back, he comes down after receiving the first set of the 10 Commandments, and he walks down, and what does he see them doing? Building this golden calf. And he's enraged, he's angered, he's passionate. He goes, wait a minute, guys, God has given you everything you need. This is a God who's led us to safety, and I'm gone for a short period of time, and you've turned your back on him, and he breaks the tablets. He climbs back up the mountain for the second time. He goes over, God's speaking to him. God instructs him to cut 2 more tablets out like he did before. And I will write on them the things that I have written on them before. And he explains then in verse 6 why he does that. The very nature of God is grace. He says, for God is a merciful, verse 6, gracious God. A God who sees us differently. Listen to what I'm saying. God sees you differently. God sees you as his prized possession. He's a giver of a gift that's not an impulse buy. You know, at the beginning of right before you check out in a grocery store or a shopping place, a store, there's a section of things that are usually hung up there. You know what they call that section? Impulse buys. If you ever stocked the shelf or if you worked in a retail store, you'll get the shipment and on the box it'll say impulse. You know what that means? That means you're waiting in line. It's really stuff you don't need, but you're waiting in line, you're a little bored. Probably more impulse buys were bought before phones because now people wait in line and they're scrolling their phones. But they have these little trinkets that nobody needs. But you see it and you go, oh, I want that. Maybe it's gum or maybe it's a candy bar or it always cracks me up. You know where you could always get peach rings? TJ Maxx. That's weird to me. I'm going to go to TJ Maxx. I need to get a shirt and some slacks and peach rings. Peach rings are always hanging up at the impulse buys because nobody goes to TJ Maxx to buy peach rings or candy-covered gummy bears or all these other things you don't need, but they're there, and while you're waiting in line, you buy them. They're impulse buys. When God gave us the gift of his Son, it wasn't an impulse. He gave it great thought to that gift because he is the ultimate giver. He gave us something that we need. It wasn't something that he haphazardly thought about and said, well, this is a good idea. I really don't know what else to give them, but this is a good thing. You ever bought a gift like that? You ever bought a gift for somebody and you bought them the gift because you knew they were giving you a gift? I don't want to go to the party empty-handed because I know they're going to bring me a gift. That's not how God gave us the gift. God's very nature, his character is that of graciousness. We read it in Psalm 103. In fact, the same list is given in Psalm 103 as it was in Exodus 34 and verse 6. And it's given in various other places because that's who God is. His nature is grace. He says, I'm going to give you something not only that is extremely important, not only that is extremely valuable, but is also extremely needed. And he gives us ultimately, in his greatest exhibit of his grace, gives us his Son. You know the passage of John in John chapter 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And then if you read down in verse 14, he said, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. And do you know what he calls Jesus in that verse? Grace. He calls him that grace was given to us. So we may be able to define this gift that God gave us as an unmerited favor or something that we don't deserve, or we could define grace ultimately for us as this: Jesus Christ, his Son. That is grace for us. That's what gives us the gift of salvation. That's the gift that we cannot repay. That's what Ephesians chapter 2, verses 8 and